84% of new cars sold in America aren't, in fact, cars at all. They're trucks. Last year, 3.5 times more Ford F-Series pickups were sold than Honda Civics. It wasn't always this way. As recently as 2011, trucks made up only about half of new sales. And it wasn't until 1989 that pickups came to dominate Alaska, by far America's least densely populated and arguably most rugged state. Americans, with our well-documented love of convenience, our wide roads, giant parking lots, and suburban neighborhoods, were clearly primed for the pickup. On the other hand, car makers also had powerful incentives to push us in that direction. Take, for instance, manufacturing costs. The most expensive components are also generally the ones you can't choose to leave out: your engine, your transmission, airbags, and brakes. Larger, more premium models, therefore, cost only marginally more to make, yet sell for many multiples of the price. Customers don't balk at the idea of spending an extra $5,000 on a $70,000 Super Duty as they would on a $20,000 Corolla. The former may be 2, 3, even 4 times as profitable as the latter. Another reason American car makers love trucks is called the chicken tax. In the 1960s, European chicken farmers were quickly losing business to cheap American imports. Tariffs were imposed on U.S. poultry, to which the United States responded with a 25% tariff on, among other things, foreign-made trucks. And thanks to aggressive lobbying from Detroit, those tariffs are still in effect today, 64 years later. Thus, when making trucks, but not cars, US automakers only have 2 big competitors, the other of the big 3, which collectively sell 90% of the nation's trucks. Finally, there's a legal loophole. During the 1970s oil crisis, Congress enacted the Corporate Average Fuel Economy Standards, requiring that car makers meet a minimum number of miles per gallon across their entire fleet of vehicles. But that minimum was set much lower for trucks. In 2024, for example, the target was 49 mpg for cars, yet just 35 for trucks. And since designing more efficient technology costs more, trucks became relatively cheaper to produce. Moreover, the flexible legal definition of light truck gave car companies a strong incentive to build bigger, heavier cars of all kinds. Most SUVs, vans, and minivans also qualify. In other words, a law designed to make cars more fuel efficient, in fact, made them much less so. It also led to other monstrosities, like the PT Cruiser, officially the Personal Transport Cruiser. Because its rear seats were technically removable and the cargo floor flat, the rear of the Cruiser could transform into something like a cargo van, allowing Chrysler to classify it as a light truck. Despite being fairly compact, it got as low as 19 miles a gallon. Now, not everyone was inclined to get on board the truck and SUV craze, but it became a kind of self-perpetuating cycle. Larger, taller vehicles are generally more dangerous. Whereas a car will likely strike a pedestrian on the legs, the raised grille of a truck or SUV collides with your head or torso, increasing the odds of a fatal accident. And not just for pedestrians. Collisions with other drivers are 2.5 times more fatal when they involve a truck or SUV. These vehicles are, however, usually safer for their owners. In other words, the more trucks are on the road, the more danger you're in, and the more reason there is for you to buy one too, creating a kind of safety arms race. Trucks and SUVs haven't just gotten far more popular, they've also gotten bigger, heavier, wider, and more expensive. Americans pay 61% more for pickups today than they did in 2009, and their average weight increased by 32% between 1990 and 2021. The small truck is practically an endangered species, a novelty. Nothing represents this trend better than the F-150. Not so long ago, the humble Ford pickup looked like this. A simple, functional, and reliable tool for farmers, contractors, and ranchers. What the company slowly realized, however, is that there just aren't that many farmers, contractors, or ranchers. It was designing its pickups with only a tiny slice of the total addressable market in mind. Just 25% of truck owners tow something more than once a year. Just 30% go off-road more than once a year. And 35% confess to hauling something once a year or even never. Over time, Ford refined this data into a winning formula. Bigger cabs, but smaller beds. Better features, but higher prices. Giant truck beds once came with tiny attached cabs. Now, giant cabs have tiny attached beds. And it worked unbelievably well. Today, Ford sells 2,490 brand new F-150s, priced from $40,000 to well over $100,000 each and every day, one every 53 seconds. It's now been the best-selling vehicle of any kind for over 40 years, and is, after the iPhone, arguably the most successful consumer product in history. Ford makes an estimated 90% of its profit from the F-150 alone, which isn't surprising given that each sale nets the company around $10,000, an enormous sum for any product, never mind one that sees 2,500 daily sales. The F-150 generates more revenue than the entirety of Starbucks or Netflix or Visa, $42 billion to the iPhone's $55 billion. It doesn't hurt that truck drivers are among the most loyal consumers. 80% will buy another full-size truck, usually from the same brand. The F-150 is truly a money-printing machine. So dramatic has the rise of the truck and SUV been over the past 15 years that it's completely transformed the entire industry. As trucks and SUVs have grown bigger and more expensive, so has the median vehicle. It should be no surprise then that the average new car sold now costs just short of $50,000. Many of them, after all, are $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 Super Duties. All of which is to say, prices have been rising for decades. None of this is particularly new. What has changed is your ability to opt out. Even as trucks and SUVs took over America's roads, there's always been, until recently, something for everyone. If you wanted an $85,000 Chevy Silverado, you could have your pick. If you preferred an $18,000 Econobox, well, you could have that too. Small cars have never been all that profitable, but someone was always willing to sell them. What they lost in margins, they gained in volume. All that began to change, however, during the pandemic. In 2020, as supply chain disruptions rippled through the world's factories, automakers realized there was no way they could possibly meet demand. So, naturally, they prioritized their most profitable models. Why waste your limited manufacturing capacity producing a Corolla only to generate $2,000 in profit, when you can instead focus on churning out Silverados for, say, $8,000 apiece? By the time assembly lines finally caught up with demand, companies had learned a valuable lesson. They didn't really need to cater to anyone except the wealthy. In fact, restricting their focus could be far more lucrative. Now, had only one carmaker seeded the low end of the market, their sales may have simply flowed to their competitors. Would-be Nissan Versa buyers would simply go for a Mitsubishi Mirage instead. But the pandemic forced a new equilibrium across the entire industry, leading to a kind of uncoordinated yet synchronized retreat from small entry-level cars. Because it happened all at once, you and I really had no choice. If we need a new car, we now have to buy a more expensive model. By 2022, Ford had discontinued every non-SUV, truck, or crossover utility vehicle except the Mustang. And like dominoes falling one after another, other companies soon followed. The Honda Fit, once available for just $17,000, was incredibly well-liked for its fuel efficiency, reliability, and surprising cargo space for such a compact car. Yet it was discontinued in 2020. The Ford Fiesta was also discontinued, along with the Chevy Spark, Nissan Versa, Ford Focus, Dodge Dart, and many others. Today, if your budget is $25,000, your options are extremely limited and rapidly dwindling. If your budget is $20,000, you're simply out of luck. There are none left. Of course, that's just the sticker price. Since auto debt is extremely normalized in the US, 80% of Americans finance their new car purchases, and since interest rates are way up, the effective price paid by consumers is now much, much higher than even these elevated numbers would suggest. 5 years ago, 5% of buyers paid more than $1,000 a month on their auto loans. What seemed at the time like an extravagant, even irresponsible sum. Today, that number is 19%. And the average monthly car payment has risen to $777, an increase of about 60% from 2019. Unsurprisingly then, delinquencies and repossessions are skyrocketing. In some states, a full 9% of borrowers have missed at least 2 consecutive payments. 3 million vehicles are now being repossessed a year. And despite tuition approaching $100,000 a year at some colleges, Americans now owe more in auto loans than student loans. Now, it would be one thing if elevated prices were confined to recent models. After all, no one truly needs a brand new car. But higher costs are trickling down to the used market as well. Back in 2020, the average used car sold by a dealer cost $22,000. Today, that number is up to $28,000. Over 5 years since the great used car shortage of 2021, the truth is that prices really haven't come down all that much. Not so long ago, ordinary middle-class families would trade their cars in for the latest model with relative frequency. It just seemed normal. Today, the average new vehicle buyer has a household income of over $150,000. As most young and many middle-aged customers have been priced out completely, seniors now represent half of all new registrations. In total, about 1 million annual car buyers have simply disappeared. What's even more concerning, however, is that automakers don't seem to care. While the number of cars sold is way down, the average franchised dealership saw its revenue increase by 4.5% in 2025 alone, and you can be certain it wasn't low to begin with. In the past, companies responded to flagging sales with incentives, attracting reluctant customers with discounts, promotions, and special offers. Not anymore. Incentives are also down by nearly 40% from before the pandemic. In other words, the increasing unaffordability of cars doesn't appear to concern them. This may help explain why Americans are so dissatisfied with the current economy, even as economists argue we have so much to celebrate. Over the past 5 years, not only have many prices grown in real terms, but so many of the products and services we've grown accustomed to have simply stopped catering to people like us entirely. It's one thing to pay more for your next car. It's another to feel that no automaker is even interested in winning your business. One is merely annoying, the other deeply demoralizing. We've seen it with Disney vacations, air travel, Netflix, fast food, concerts, and now with cars. As consumers, there isn't much we can do about this. We can't change the way these businesses operate. As investors, however, there are ways to directly support projects trying to make a difference. For example, with the climate, like with today's sponsor, Climatize. Climatize is a US-based, SEC-registered, FINRA member investing platform that connects people like you and I to vetted renewable energy projects seeking funding across the country. With Climatize, anyone 18 or over with a US bank account can start contributing to clean energy projects nationwide. Each project hosted on Climatize is vetted and filed under SEC regulation crowdfunding, giving you transparency to review details before deciding whether it aligns with your values and financial goals. As with all investments, Climatize projects carry a risk of underperformance or loss. This isn't investment advice. Please review all available information before making any investment decisions. Climatize is offering something special for you. When you sign up using my link and use the code POLY50 to complete your profile, you will receive $50 in investment credits. You'll earn that credit only once you've completed your profile, and it's only available for use on their platform. A minimum investment from the investor's funds must be applied when using it. So, when you're ready to learn more about projects working toward climate solutions, sign up using the code POLY50 and explore more at climatize.earth/polymatter. You can also click the link on screen or in the description.